Okay, this meeting is now recording.
Thank you. This is the regular meeting of the zoning administrator for the city of San Clemente. My name is Cecilia Gallardo Daly, and I am the zoning administrator. The first item of business is to receive and file the minutes of the zoning administrator meeting of October 7, 2021, so received and filed. The next item on the agenda is non-agenda public comment. Members of the audience may address the zoning administrator on any item that is not on the agenda. But I don't think we have any non-agenda public comment.
We have not received any public comments related to items not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next item is our public hearings. The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker. Following closure of the public hearing, the zoning administrator will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act upon the matter by motion. Okay, so our first item on the agenda is a minor exception permit for 305 East Avenida, Magdalena, and our staff person, Kyle Weber, will give us a report on this item.
Okay, thank you. So applicant Kristen Sprague and homeowners Amber Hughes and Dorothy Duncan are requesting the approval of minor exception permit 21-039 to allow a 15% reduction to the rear yard setback of an existing non-conforming single-family property, which is located at 305 East Avenida, Magdalena. The subject property is a 6,079 square foot lot located in the residential low zoning district, and currently has a one-story, 2,335 square foot single-family residence with a detached guest unit and two-car garage in the rear. The property is non-conforming with regard to an existing 4-foot 10-inch side yard setback where 6 feet is required. The approval of the minor exception permit will allow a 21 square foot addition to an existing detached accessory building at the rear of the site. The non-conforming status of the residential building will remain non-conforming in regards to the side yard setback. The proposed project does include a 21 square foot addition to the rear of the existing detached unit and will attach the guest unit to the primary residence. The 21 square foot addition will encroach 1.5 feet into the required 10-foot rear yard setback, which is allowed with the approval of the minor exception permit. Unrelated to the minor exception permit, the proposed project also includes a 75 square foot expansion at the front of the primary residence, a 60 square foot expansion to the kitchen in the rear, and a 165 square foot addition for a new dining area that will attach the primary structure to the existing rear yard guest unit. The guest unit thereafter will operate as a second bedroom for the home with internal access. Total square footage added to the lot will increase by 5.2%, with a total lot coverage of 43.6%, where 50% is allowed. The total square foot addition to the primary residence will not increase by more than 50%, which is a required standard for existing non-conforming homes when adding a certain amount of square footage. Also unrelated to the approval of the minor exception permit, the project also proposes a 127 square foot unenclosed breezeway connecting the detached garage to the primary residence and a new deck and landscape wall at the front of the property. The minor exception permit allows a 15% decrease of the rear yard setback for primary structures between the rear property line and the primary building, which is consistent with the scope of this project. The City of San Clemente zoning ordinance allows a property to maintain non-conforming status when the project proposes an expansion less than 50% of the existing floor area, and the project does not remove or alter 50% or more of the exterior walls. So with that, staff believes the required findings can be made to approve the minor exception permit. The proposed additions, including the breezeway, front yard deck, and landscape wall, meet development standards. Other than the minor exception requested to reduce the required rear yard setback, the reduction of the rear yard setback is for an addition behind the primary residence and cannot be viewed from the public right-of-way. The proposed dining room addition will attach the primary building to the existing detached guest unit in the rear, which will be converted into a second bedroom for the primary residence and will result in a cohesive and traditional single-family residential building in character with residential properties nearby. The new front yard deck and landscape wall comply with maximum height required landscape standards in the zoning ordinance, such as the 50% required permeable soil in the front yard setback area. Also, the architectural treatment of the project complies with the general plan, zoning ordinance, and city's design guidelines. Since the addition is in character with the scale and massing of buildings in the neighborhood, the project also maintains a one-story roof line in a zone that allows 2 stories and a maximum height of 25 feet. With that, staff recommends that the zoning administrator determine the project is categorically exempt from guidelines with CEQA and adopt resolution zoning administrator 21-026. And that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here if there are any questions.
Okay, great. Just one follow-up question for you, Kyle. The zoning ordinance allows a property to maintain non-conforming status when, as you mentioned, the project proposes an expansion less than 50% of the existing floor area, and the project does not remove or alter 50% or more of the exterior walls. Is the project in compliance with the 50% or more of the exterior walls?
Yes, the project is in compliance with
Removing
exterior
less than.
walls. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, less than 50%.
Okay. All right. Would the applicant like to address the zoning administrator on this item?
I don't have anything to add. If anybody has any questions, happy to answer.
Okay. Well, I don't have any follow-up questions. The plans and staff report were pretty detailed. I reviewed the plans and the report and the conditions of approval and the findings, and went out to the property. The reduction in the rear yard setback is for an addition behind the primary residence. Can't be viewed from the public right-of-way. The proposed additions and modifications to the structures on the property look to be in character with other residential properties in the neighborhood. The project maintains the one-story roof line and expands the floor space less than 50% and modifies exterior walls less than 50%. So with that, I can make the findings. For the minor exception permit, the requested minor exception will not interfere with the purpose of the zone or the standards of the zone in which the property is located. The neighboring properties will not be adversely affected as a result of the approval of the minor exception permit. Except for the requested minor setback reduction, the project meets the development standards of the zone. The addition that requires the minor exception, as I mentioned, is proposed in the rear of the property, so it's well screened from the street, and the proposed project does not exacerbate the existing nonconformity on the site. The approval of the minor exception permit will not be detrimental to health, safety, or welfare to the general public. The proposed project will be required to meet the California Building Code and Orange County Fire Authority regulations. So with that, I will determine the project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, Class 1 Existing Facilities, and I approve Resolution ZA 21-026, Minor Exception Permit 21-039, the Duncan Hughes addition, subject to the conditions of approval. Thanks, Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next public hearing item is short-term apartment rental at 119 East Mariposa, and we'll have our staff planner, Stephanie Rojas, give us a report on this item.
Good afternoon, zoning administrator. Staff did prepare a very short PowerPoint presentation just to visualize some of the figures and exhibits contained within the staff report and attachments. So with me is the property owner and applicant, Jordan Bennett. And the proposal before you today is to establish a short-term apartment rental in an existing 3-unit multifamily building. It's located in the residential medium density zoning district, and really what distinguishes a short-term apartment rental from standard STLUs is a couple of different characteristics that make it a little bit different. First, stars are located outside of the allowable STLU zones. So typically there are very specific designated zones in the city where STLUs may be established. This is located outside of that. Second, another thing that distinguishes STAR permits is that there is an on-site property manager that would be occupying one of the units. So again, that is a distinguishing characteristic. And then third, STARs are required to be located at least 300 feet away from the nearest STLU or STAR. So there is a location separation requirement that is intended to mitigate the potential of over-concentration of vacation rentals within a given area. So I just wanted to clarify for your benefit that is what distinguishes a STAR permit versus an STLU. So for this particular property, it is a 3-unit apartment building. The applicant proposes to convert units A and B into STAR units. So unit A would be located on the ground floor. It's comprised of 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Unit B is comprised of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. And unit C, which would be located on the upper floor, is proposed to be used as the manager's unit. And then as depicted on the street view, the property itself has 2 parking spaces allocated per unit, so that would be 1 garage and 1 driveway. And then this was provided as the location map within your attachments. So it just gives you some background as far as where the proposed STAR is located in relation to all of the existing STLUs in the area. You can see it's located just outside of the nearest allowed STLU zone, so it's about 500 feet away from the downtown STLU zone. And you can also see from the map that there are no STLUs located east of El Camino Real. So there are quite a few that are located within that vicinity. The nearest one is about 1,000 feet away. And the reason that there are quite a few that are located outside of the designated STLU zone is because those STLUs were actually established prior to the city adopting an STLU ordinance. So they are non-conforming, and they did go through the right legal requirements to extend its amortization period to continue to legally operate through the year 2026. So the resolution and the staff report does summarize staff's findings supporting its recommendation for approval. So a couple of things to note about this proposed application. First, it does comply with all of the location development standards that are outlined within the zoning code. Again, one of the very specific things that the STAR ordinance requires is that one of the units be occupied by a qualified and trained manager. So the applicant has provided a narrative explaining, how exactly that manager will be trained and qualified. The property owner himself does own or has experience himself managing properties, so they would be, providing that training directly to the on-site property manager, and that there are a number of different things outlined within his narrative explaining, what measures the property manager would be taking to ensure that there are no disruptions to the neighbors in that area. And then in addition to that, as I mentioned, it is located over 300 feet away from the nearest STLU. In fact, the closest one is 1,000 feet away, so there's certainly no over-concentration of vacation rentals in that area. And then I think beyond just the location and development standards, staff really just looked at the appropriateness of this particular location and whether or not it's appropriate to be used as a vacation rental. So it's certainly consistent with the residential density of the RN zone. There are, no single-family homes in immediate vicinity of this project site, and then also it really just supports the city's various visitor-serving land use policies. It's located very close to a lot of the city's main attractions. So it's within walking distance from the beach, from Ole Hansen Beach Club, as well as Costa Romantica. It's very close to downtown as well. So it really, because it's in such close proximity to all of those different attractions, it really does support all of the different visitor serving goals that the city has. So for those reasons, staff is recommending approval of the project. And I will also note that staff did receive one public comment, which was requested to be read into the record. So I can either do that now or when you open it up for public comments.
Okay, thank you. All right. I don't think I have any follow-up questions for staff. Would the applicant like to say anything this time?
I think Stephanie really summarized it quite well. Unless you have any questions for me.
I don't have any questions now. Okay. I'll open the public hearing, and do you want to read the?
Yes. Okay. So this public comment is from Matthew Dennison. He states, as an owner of 113, 1111, and 109 East Mariposa, I say no to the short-term rental. There are no short-term rentals east of PCH or on the city map for short-term rental. I called Steve Conrad of Conrad Realtors and Jeffrey Karen of Century 21, and as of today, there are very limited long-term rentals available as of today. Parking is limited on the street because of the business in this area. Thank you.
Okay. Did you get the one that was received today as well?
No, unfortunately, I did not receive anything else.
Okay. Take a short pause. I'll go grab.
You want me to find out?
I can grab it. Yeah, no problem. I'll be right back. Take a break. All right. We did receive a comment that I'll read into the record. This is from Sherry Murphy. Hello. We have had 5 generations of family living at 114 East Mariposa in San Clemente. My parents, Max and Helen Berg, built our home in 1954. Many of our neighbors are longtime residents in the area. Our family is against the short-term rental for 119 East Mariposa. This will bring renters who are here to vacation and party, which will cause noise, parking issues, and strangers to our neighborhood. We already have issues with gangs and drug dealers up the street. This is a residential neighborhood, and we are against this permit. My neighbor, the Arias family, asked that I convey their opinion of opposition as well. They do not have a computer to send this to you. They live right next to the apartment complex. Sherry Berg Murphy and family. Okay. All right. And with that, I will close the public hearing. I'll let you. Sorry, we didn't forward it to you. Okay. So I have reviewed all the information related to the application, including the conditions of approval and the project narrative submitted by the applicant, recognizing that Unit C would be occupied by a full-time on-site manager is important. The project proposes to meet the required occupancy in accordance with the short-term lodging unit regulations, which is 2 per bedroom plus 2. The project would expand the city's inventory of overnight accommodations. It's an existing triplex, which is consistent with the density of that zoning district. And there are parking spaces, 2 for each unit, that can accommodate any anticipated parking demand. Related to the public comments regarding concern for noise and a number of people coming into the neighborhood that might disrupt the existing residents, because there will be an on-site property manager, I think that those potential impacts would be mitigated. And the applicant has stated in their narrative that their on-site manager will be monitoring move-in, move-out requirements, noise restrictions, parking rules, regulations, capacity limits, coordination of repairs and maintenance, and assisting with the management of bookings. So having an on-site manager, I think, is really important here, and I'm confident that the STLU will be well run. So with that, I can make the findings for the STAR permit. The proposed use is permitted within the subject zone pursuant to the approval of a STAR permit, and it complies with all of the applicable provisions of the city's general plan and the purpose and intent of the zone. The site is suitable for the type and intensity of use that's proposed. The proposed use will not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties and improvements in the vicinity. The property will be occupied by a full-time on-site property manager, and the manager would be responsible for maintaining the premises and addressing any concerns raised by short-term tenants or neighbors, such as overcrowding, noise, parking, and trash. The proposed use will not negatively impact surrounding land uses. The proposed STAR units comply with the city's requirements for distance from other STLUs and do not create a concentration of short-term rentals in the area. The use meets the minimum operating and development standards as required in the code. The application has demonstrated compliance with all operating standards for STLUs, including maintaining vacation rental insurance, prohibiting parties, and setting a maximum occupancy limit. And so this proposed STAR application qualifies for an STLU license permit. So with that, I will determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, Class 1 Existing Facilities, and I approve Resolution ZA21-027, Short-Term Apartment Rental 21-162, the Bennett STAR, subject to the conditions of approval. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our next public hearing item. This is a minor conditional use permit for 1520 North El Camino Real, Unit 6, and we will have our Economic Development Officer, Jonathan Lightfoot, give us a presentation on this item.
Thank you, Zoning Administrator. The item in front of us now is for an existing commercial building, and the specific request is for a minor conditional use permit to relocate an existing office from our North Beach area into this suite. We do have the business owner here who will be available to provide some additional context after the report from Mr. Greg Rosalino. He's operated a insurance agency out of an office space in North Beach for about 10 years and is looking to relocate into the mixed-use building at 1520 North El Camino Real. That is a large building that includes 6 commercial suites on the ground floor and 14 residential units above. This property falls within our mixed-use 2 zone, which does allow professional offices by right. However, it's also within our pedestrian overlay in that area, which does require this minor use permit in instances where there's a business use that is not considered pedestrian friendly. This is an item that staff has discussed with the applicant on a couple of pieces. One being that the code specifically calls out insurance agencies as not being pedestrian friendly. This is a unique case where Mr. Rosalino's business also offers financial services, which are indicated as a pedestrian friendly use, but staff took the conservative approach to go through this use permit process. After publication of this report, staff did receive one comment, and that was from the neighboring business owner, Mr. Bryce Hunter at 1502 North El Camino Real, expressing some concerns about the parking at the existing building. I did respond by email and then set up a phone call with this property owner. After understanding the scope of the application, he indicated that he no longer had concerns about this particular use. His initial concern was regarding parking and understanding that this use would be actually a less intensive use than what the code desires at this location. He withdrew any comment and explained that process and use to his tenants. Staff also attempted to contact the property broker in advance of publishing the report, but was unsuccessful. I did, however, have an opportunity to talk to him on the phone this week regarding just the general trends of tenancy in that building, and he indicated that the primary interests that he and his firm have received are from business services. He indicated that one reason that might be is that there is sufficient parking for all the different uses at this mixed-use building, but a portion of those are underground in a gated garage. And so there's 16 surface publicly accessible parking stalls that would be shared between those 6 uses, but that's been a deterrent to some of the food service or other optional uses in this area. So I won't go into all of the different elements of the required findings, but I'll highlight a couple. Staff believes that this use is eligible for the minor use permit in this case because the residential tenants in the mixed-use building do already are already served well by food and service uses within 500 feet, a very short walking distance to retail, food, and other uses. And staff also acknowledges that at this time, this portion of the pedestrian overlay does still have longer blocks, higher speeds of traffic, and a lack of larger parking areas that would encourage regular pedestrian activity. Staff also looked into vacancies in the area and did see that there's 5 different buildings with vacancies within a quarter-mile distance of this building. So we believe that we can meet the findings required for economic situation to allow for a non-pedestrian oriented use in this suite. And because of that, staff does recommend that the zoning administrator find this project to be categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to guideline section 15301, since it is an existing development, an existing commercial facility. We recommend that the zoning administrator adopt resolution ZA 21-024 given the information of this staff report. I would like to make one quick clarification of a clerical error that I caught after this was published, and that was a reference to a proposed restaurant instead of office use. That's at the top of page 3 and page 5. I'll make sure that that is corrected should this be approved and signed before that is completed.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I don't think I have any follow-up questions for staff. Would you like to make any comments on the item?
You know, I think Jonathan did a really good job in identifying who I am and my business and all of the special findings. Initially, when I heard this, I was just more of kind of not understanding the whole pedestrian-oriented thing. And I think, you know, I understand from a average point of view of maybe thinking insurance companies are all the same and it's clerical in a corporate building somewhere, but I believe that State Farm offers the personal local agent and really separates ourselves to be pillars within the community and really active and visible. But at this point, you know, I'm happy with where we're at and going down this road, and I'm really hoping for a resolution.
Okay, great, thank you. I do have a couple of follow-up
Sure.
questions. So pedestrian orientation is intended to activate the street. Are there going to be any pedestrian-oriented features of your business layout? You know, how you set up your office or the front of the building or the front of your tenant space?
Absolutely. It's in fact so common to have people stop in that I've had to designate the front of my office as a welcoming sort of waiting area with couches, coffee stations, things like that. As far as if that's answering your question of accommodating people who are coming in, or are you talking about drawing people in?
Well, I'm just thinking, you know, like a realtor's office has the photos or information regarding, you know, rentals that are available or homes that are for sale that sort of, you know, attract the eye, and then, you know, people are interested in finding out more. A bank would have a teller or an ATM for people to walk up to it. You know, is there any kind of, you know, advertising of services or things that you might have at the business entrance or along the business frontage to have that same kind of appeal?
Absolutely. You know, if approved, I have, and corporate has designated, there's flyers that'll be when you come in and offering all the different products. We have posters, things like that, that would, you know, let customers know everything that we offer. But on the actual store window front itself would be some of those things as well, letting people know what we offer. And so, yeah, I just haven't done any of that yet because I just don't want to. But yeah, I would love to have that sort of signage with those products up so that people can see what we do.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'm going to open the public hearing. Have we received any requests?
No additional requests
No?
or
Okay.
comments have come in other than what's attached to the report.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will close the public hearing. The information in the report is very thorough. The letters of support from our local business groups were important to read too, so thank you. And Jonathan, I appreciate you recognizing sort of the unique characteristics of this portion of El Camino Real and the blocks, and then researching the vacancies in the area. I think that's really important. Professional offices are uses permitted with the approval of a minor conditional use permit. The business accepts walk-in clients and offers financial services, and financial service institutions are considered a pedestrian-oriented use. So with that, I can make the findings for the minor conditional use permit and determine that the project is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15301, class 1 existing facilities, and I approve minor conditional use permit 21-246 State Farm pedestrian orientation. All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and with that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. New business, seeing none. We'll go to the next item, old business, seeing none. I will adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting of the zoning administrator to be held at 3 p.m. on Thursday, November 4, 2021 at the Community Development Department, first floor community room, located at 910 Calle Negocio, San Clemente. Thank you.